You're listening to the Church Help Podcast, where we strive to help churches reach their full potential and catch on fire for God once again, with your hosts, Ty Campbell and Jason Brown. All right, here we go. Another episode of the Church Help Podcast. If you enjoyed our last episode on missions and how churches should support missions, if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. I think it's the heartbeat of God. I think the Bible's clear on that. There's missions in the Old Testament, New Testament, all throughout the Bible. Salvation is one of the few things you'll find everywhere in the Bible. Pictures of salvation, stories of people getting saved, lives changed. As God's people, that should be our top priority, something we're focused on. So today we're going to a little bit different topic. I think this will be a little bit more of a creative topic. Hopefully this is either a blessing to you or at least get your mind going about maybe trying something different. A big proponent that I have, or a big thing that I have is, we've talked about this on a couple episodes, but I really do believe so many churches and preachers and church members sometimes, they're stuck in a time capsule from the 60s and 70s and 80s. And, you know, they have the mindset of, well, if we didn't do it in the 70s, we shouldn't be doing it now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, there's a lot of things that we call old paths now, as some people like to call it. There's some things that we hold to as, man, this was what we have to do. You got to realize back then, a lot of those were very brand new concepts.
Yeah.
People like the bus route, for example. The bus route, when they first started doing that a few decades ago, that was like, there's a lot of people that hated the idea. There's some people that liked the idea. It was very polarizing, and that was not an old past thing, but it was something that someone had a vision for, and they said, we could try this. It might work. And because they tried something new, now millions of people are going to heaven since then because they got saved on a bus route. Their life got changed. And I know so many preachers that are bus kids and missionaries that are bus kids, and it's such a big deal. But when it first started, it was this new concept. So what I want to say is, just because something is a new concept doesn't mean it's wrong. Now, if it's new doctrine, it's wrong. If it's a new Bible, it's wrong. But new concepts and new ways to do things, I think we do need to have an open mind as to what and now we've got to use discernment. We need discernment, wisdom, to determine if this is actually biblical or not biblical, or should be done or not be done. And so, for example, you say, a new concept like a rock band and a praise team. No, I think wisdom and discernment says that's a bad idea. That's something that would be new, a new concept, but it's also, to me, unbiblical. So what we're going to focus on this episode is, bridging the gap or connecting missionaries with their supporting churches.
Amen.
And this is one of those areas that I think is stuck in the 70s. I really, really do. And I think I have several examples of that. And again, I'm getting my mind going on these. Some things we're going to implement in our church eventually. And I want to get your mind going. How can we get missions up to date? And remember, back in the 70s, it wasn't up to date. And what we do now is what they did back then to get it up to date. So we need to get it up to date because it's very outdated. It's not working very well personally, at least not as well as it could. I think because it's being done so poorly and it's so stuck in the past, we're not very efficient in our missions. And I think we could do so much more with what we already have versus what we've been doing. So I'll let you start it if you want. I know I may have more topics than you. This is something I've been putting more time into recently. But do you have anything that you feel like when it comes to missions, it's kind of outdated and there's not really a good reason for it, and it's something we should be trying to work on?
Yeah. I think to start with, it's outdated because we didn't have the technology then that we do now.
That's most things.
I mean, there's more, but just, I think that's a big issue. And I think the opportunity that we have to utilize technology, to help bridge that gap, that we're talking about, it's a great tool to use. We had talked prior to this episode, or even I don't know, it might have been even a while ago, but we had talked about doing video presentations and doing Zoom calls, and we've seen that done, during church service, just to help. Because the whole idea is to make sure that, as we've talked, that your church, our churches know, our members, church members know the missionaries, right?
Yeah.
And even so that the missionaries can get to know our church members, right? And I think one of the ways that I would like to implement technology into how we bridge the gap here at Lighthouse, going forward, even into 25, is utilizing a Zoom call, utilizing, and we've got screens and different things that we can use to pull them up and give live updates and different things of that nature. And as I mentioned, as a church planter, when we were in the ministry as church planters, that was one of the things that we did and that I did, is sending a short 2 to 5 minute video of just a quick update, to our churches that supported us. But then I think even going further than that is to have a live video where,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for our church and our churches to get to see the whole family and maybe get to hear from the whole family. And anyhow, so a bunch of different things that you could do with that. But that's one of the things that I want to try to implement here at Lighthouse, in the next 6 months to a year, is trying to do that once a month, with a missionary. Once a month, let's get somebody on the phone, on the video, and let's have a 5 to 10 minute conversation with them, or more, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the Holy Spirit leads, and I think that'll help. And I know that there's a myriad of different things that we can do, that we're going to talk about to bridge that gap. But I think utilizing the technology that we have at our disposal is definitely an arena that we need to probably jump in with both feet, tactfully,
Yeah.
and with discernment.
Yeah. And technology that sums up a lot of the list, as far as
Mm-hmm.
what it's just a different day and age we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me personally, and I know a lot of preachers would probably pass out if they heard me say it, but I don't care. For me personally, I would like to see us get to a point in time where prayer letters stop, like missionary update letters stop. And the reason is because in what other area of life do we still update people via letter?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is so outdated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, if you're 60 plus, that used to be your primary source of communication.
Yeah.
It no longer is.
Yeah.
So for everyone who grows up and they're in their teens and 20s and 30s and 40s, and if you're in your 40s, you vaguely have remembered sending some letters, as you when you're younger. But for this generation of people, really the majority of the church now, no one uses letters. I mean, imagine me saying, "Hey, we're going to start this company, and the company is very successful here now. So what we're going to do is I want to start an offshoot. I want to open up another branch in India. So we're going to send a couple of our employees. They're going to go to India and they're going to start a branch over there. And now I want y'all to communicate with me to let me know how you're doing, and I want you to mail me letters."
Mm-hmm.
What? No, you
Mm-hmm.
call me, you text me, you video something. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see prayer letters gone, because it's something to me that it is so old fashioned, to the point where we've all been in churches. Your church is this way, our church is, just because it's so young compared to most, but 99% of the churches for missionaries have some wall with prayer letters on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone stop and read them.
Mm.
They're there. They look good. And look, here's our missionaries. Here's where they go. No one reads them.
Mm.
You could. I went to a church one time. They had that wall. A missionary letter was 12 years old. It was still on the wall because they never got another one and just never got replaced. It's sitting there. No one's reading these things.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, at one point, that was really the only way to communicate. At
Mm-hmm.
one point, it made sense. At one point, yeah, letters, let's do it. It's cool that, we have no way to talk to that person, but now look, we have information and we can read it. Here's what's going on. It used to be cool. People 50 years and younger now aren't stopping to read letters. They're just not.
Mm.
It's at the point where these churches are supporting missionaries for decades. When the missionary walks in the door, the people treat him like a visitor.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been sending money to this guy for 30 years, but you don't even know what he looks like.
Yeah.
You know nothing about him. And sure, he sent a letter. Most pastors I know don't even read the letters. The
Mm.
churches don't read the letters. No one's reading the letters. I would like to see him stop, and not stop in the form of no more updates, but
Mm-hmm.
change how we're doing the updating.
Mm.
Because I need the letters. If you don't send out letters, I don't support you.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only form currently that you offer that
Mm-hmm.
verifies you're doing something.
Yeah.
But for me, like you said, the live I think is a good opportunity. You know, certain churches may or may not have technology for that. Who knows? But same thing with me. One thing I would love to do, because we on Wednesday nights we read. We recently started reading missionary letters. We have another one to do
Mm.
tonight, and I would rather pull down the projector screen and show a 5-minute video
Mm-hmm.
update from the missionary.
Mm-hmm.
And just him saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, you know, this is the date. We're over here in Uganda. Here's what we got going on," and maybe him even having his phone showing a church meeting under a
Mm-hmm.
tree, saying, "This is Pastor so and so. He's been having this church now for 2 months, and it's going really good. And come
Mm-hmm.
over here. This is a building project we have going on." And to me, the church would love that. I mean, they're
Yeah.
engaged now. They have a face to put to the name, and now when they're
Mm-hmm.
given missions, they say that we're helping building that church, and we're helping that
Mm-hmm.
pastor. They see what they're, but missionary letters to me, I would like to see those things long gone, just because no other, I mean, when I see a letter, there's one thing that comes to mind. It's a bill. No one mails letters for communication anymore. It's a bill. It's the IRS. It's a spam mail. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm so when I talk to these missionaries last few couple months now, they've all told me the same thing. When they get send out missionary letters, one, it takes quite a long time to type them all out and everything, and they feel, just being honest, they feel pressured to make it sound interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're paying us to be here. I know this last month has just been kind of an average month, but we got to make it sound cool. So that like they have to fluff it up and make it look interesting. And then they said usually by the time the church gets the letter, it's a month or two old. You're working on it. So in
Mm-hmm.
other words, as a church that's praying to help these individuals, praying for these missionaries, you're praying on old information
Mm.
that they had a need 2 months ago, and you're just now reading it in the letter.
Mm.
Now that need's probably gone, and now there's probably another need, but you're not going to know about it for a couple months. So to me, I would like to see letters eventually gone. I think there's something that at one point they were great, but why are we still doing them?
Mm-hmm.
They're very inefficient. You know, it's not like in America, I can mail a letter to you, and in probably 2 or 3 days you'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
It could take 2 months to send something overseas. It is a whole nother ball game when you start crossing country lines, start crossing oceans. I mean, it takes months sometimes. All the information generally we're getting is wildly outdated,
Mm.
and I would rather be able. I mean, if I was a missionary, do I want to sit down for a couple hours writing this letter and trying to think of everything and organizing everything and doing the letterhead, or just, hey, hit my camera button, do a quick 5-minute video here, look at this, here's what we're doing, and here's a couple needs, pray for this, pray for so and so, and hey,
Yeah.
I can show that in my church this week, and it's live. I mean, it's not live, but it's 2 days old, it's updated.
Mm-hmm.
Look at brother so and so, we've been supporting him for 6 years, and look what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I would, as a church, I'd rather have that. As a missionary, I'd rather do that. And then if that guy ever walks through our doors on furlough or just on a vacation, whatever, our church go, oh, I know you. How is your church doing? How's brother so and so doing? How is it? Because we've been
Mm-hmm.
keeping up to date with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I would love to see prayer letters eventually go, just because I think they're old. And in 30 years, the videos may be old. And in 30 years, someone's going to have, if videos ever catch on, they're going to say, videos are, my grandparents used videos. Why are we still doing that? You have to change with the times. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just part of it. I think it's one of those things that's really outdated. And because that is our only, if not primary, form of communication between missionary and churches, the pastor's not reading them, the staff's not reading them, the church isn't reading them. There's no connection. No
Mm-hmm.
one knows any of these people. They don't know what's going on, and it's partly both fault. It's fault on both sides. But
Mm-hmm.
to me, that's if we're talking about getting churches to know missionaries and vice versa, that to me is the biggest one. As far as it's a fairly simple change.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is the one I was talking about. A lot of churches would hate it because they're stuck in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Yeah.
of pastors, oh, if you're not going to send me a letter, I don't
Yeah.
need a letter, but I do need updates.
Right.
If you're not sending a letter, I better be able to find a video.
Yep.
I just need updates. I need something.
Yep.
But so
I
many
think a
people are
lot of
like
them.
the letter is like so sacred.
Yeah. We've got some now that they're not sending a physical letter, but what they are doing is they're emailing.
Yeah, I got a
They're
couple that do
putting,
that.
yeah, and I would prefer that.
I prefer that too
Two
because I can
reasons.
print it off whenever
One,
I want it.
yeah, yeah, two reasons. One, I can open the exactly. I can open the email, but secondly, it saves them money on postage.
Oh yeah,
If they're, I mean, had one missionary
printing,
say that they were
postage,
spending,
mailing, yeah, everything.
yeah, they were spending almost $2,000 a year on postage to send out letters,
Yep.
and so and to and I agree. I mean, I think we definitely need to take that step. As a church and independent Baptist take that step forward. It's not going to. I don't think it's going to be something that everybody jumps on board with, but I do think that I think it's a great idea just moving forward. But as far as the prayer letters, they are only as important as we as pastors make them.
Oh yeah.
If the prayer letter is not emphasized or the update is not emphasized, and the other side of it is too is that some I know a couple of missionaries that really just don't even have the technology to be able to send a video as of right now, and so their only means is really
Yeah.
by letter or what have you, and so and in some indigenous parts of the world, that is no cell service, no internet, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of restrictions in that regard. So I think again, it's going to take a little bit of time for that to catch on. But and there's going to be probably a handful of missionaries, handful of places where they're not going to, if they're in the jungles of of South America and Brazil, they're not going to have cell service. So
I think you'd be surprised nowadays. I
yeah,
really do.
yeah, you're probably
I
right.
talked to every missionary this week about some of these ideas, and they
Yeah,
all said you could be in the absolute middle of nowhere in Africa,
that's
walk
that's
into a
amazing.
little hole in the ground. They have a flat screen TV and a smartphone.
Yeah, that's
I
crazy.
think you'd be
Yeah,
shocked at where
yeah.
where cell phone coverage is.
Well, they got them looking like cactuses and palm trees and everything
Uh-huh.
else now, as far as cell towers. But no, and I think I'm encouraged. Just as a pastor because that we still hang our letters up. I was just telling you,
Hmm.
one of the things for the time being that we're going to do, we have a wall that's a map of the world, an 8 by 8 wall or a 6 by 8 wall, whatever it is, and right now we've got our missionary letters up and prayer cards too. That's one thing. So as we have missionaries come in,
Yeah.
I would like to have them send their prayer cards in because that has a picture of their families, that has a picture, that has their birth dates and everything else on them. And so we have, I mean, a lot of our folks, even the younger generation. I mean, right now, God is blessing our church. We've got, I mean, over half of our church is 18 to 30, and which is just insane. It's unheard
Yeah.
of. And so, but even they are, I will see them from time to time at the the missions wall, if you will, and just kind of reading through some of those letters,
It's good.
but or updates, if you will. And they're, it's a digital update for a lot of them. It's a digital update that you can print out, right? And so, which is, I don't know. But yeah, I think to move forward, and like I mentioned, as a church planner, that was one of the things that we had requested from us, is that we would just do, once a month, just do a 2 to 3 minute video, just a quick update, and so and we had a few that wanted a letter every month, so for us it was easier because my wife and I we go, okay, well, what happened last week? What happened? So I definitely get it, having been on that side of having to write prayer letters and
Yeah.
prayer updates. But um, it was a whole lot easier and a whole lot quicker to make the video and to send that update that way. So, but I think, I think going back to engaging, and it's one thing to, and I would probably take that a step further and go back to that Zoom video and go back to that Zoom call or that, because it's one thing to get a video update, right? And to see
Yeah.
them and say, okay, but it's another thing when your church can actually engage with them
Oh
via
yeah.
via video, right? And I think having the opportunity to be able to engage with them, whether it be a regular basis or but just engage with missionaries and maybe have a time of question and answer for them, to where a church member can ask a question and have that engagement and have that conversation. I think they're
Yeah.
going to remember them a lot. I think they're going to remember them, and just it's gonna make more of an impact on the church member, I think, in that regard. As far as just being able to engage with them via video, you can see them, you can talk to them, you can see what's going on there,
Yep.
and also have questions answered too. And so, even with the video updates, I think taking that again, that step further, and just setting up a time to have those video conversations, is absolutely amazing. So, it's it. I do it every week on Friday with some men in Pakistan and some preachers in Bangladesh, and so it's very simple to do, but at the same time, like you said, it's real time too. So it's pretty cool that way.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed a lot of, I guess, younger missionaries, because they're the ones going on the field right now. One thing I like that they're doing is becoming a little more common is they have their own social media page.
Yeah.
Um, I always recommend Facebook just because most churches use Facebook. A lot of church members have Facebook. Facebook's really the only one that young and old tend to use. It's kind of a melting pot. It allows you to do more as far as communication, that kind of stuff. But a lot of these younger missionaries are having they have their own personal Facebook page, but then they have their own, like the Ethan Donahoe was just here on Sunday, or last
Hmm.
Sunday, is the Donahoe to Bolivia. And if
Hmm.
you follow that page, I mean, he'll send them, but I don't need his prayer letters
Yeah. Right.
because when he gets to the field, every couple of days they're going to be posting something. Or here, this is going on. Praise God for that. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Good. Yep.
I don't need a letter. I just need to know something's happening. I need to
Hmm.
stay up to date, and I need to know if there's anything that's alarming or something. I just need
Hmm.
information.
Yeah.
And so, to me, a big way that missionaries can relate to churches and to stay in contact with that kind of stuff is social media pages. And on top of that, maybe I don't know all the details of every church, but maybe certain missionaries may not get dropped as much
Mm.
if they had something like this, because they're just, it's hard to, just being honest, it's hard to drop someone that you know personally.
Hmm.
If we have 20 missionaries and say, well, we got to drop one, who's that guy? I don't know. Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
But if it's, oh yeah, we follow that guy on Facebook and he's been doing this and doing this, and you're probably not getting dropped.
Hmm.
If they have to drop someone, they have to make a decision. It's probably not going to be you,
Hmm.
just because the information is there. And to me, something like that is a lot more, especially in today's day and age, it's a lot more easy, a lot more natural than writing out a letter that encompasses 1 or 2 months or 3 months, however you do it. It is
Hmm.
just, yeah, real quick, this happened. Throw it out there, you're done. And
Hmm.
a few of those a month, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I don't need the full letter. And again, all these ideas, kind of like what Brother Jason said, none of these ideas are foolproof to the point where every single missionary ever can and should be doing them.
Hmm.
I mean, there's some missionaries, if you're in like Southeast Asia, you're not allowed to be there.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can't post all over social media what you're doing.
Yep. Exactly.
But for, I would say, 90% of missionaries, you can do these.
Hmm.
So you have to use a little common sense and stuff, what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't do for the sake of your family.
Yeah.
But for most missionaries, a simple social media page, and really, to me, if you just put an update video every so often on
Hmm.
that page, you don't even have to send it to me.
Yeah.
Because if I want to watch it and I want to show it to my church, I can just pull it up and throw it on. I can throw it from
Hmm.
Facebook. So to me, there's been about half of our missionaries now, maybe less than half, maybe 30% of our missionaries now have these Facebook pages and stuff for ministry,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, I know way more about them than all the other ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can tell you more about them than the other ones. Even though I read all the letters, I feel closer to these. So
Mm-hmm.
that connection is a good thing to have. A big thing that some churches do, some don't, and there's different reasons why some do and some don't. But one thing that we're starting to do this year, now that we can, is mission trips. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what the point of mission trips is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of now, if you go away from Independent Baptist, generally mission trip means we're going somewhere to help you build something. It can mean that.
Yeah.
I've seen it done, and it works well. But generally, the primary purpose of going on a mission trip is not. It sounds weird, but it's not even necessarily to be a blessing and help the missionary. Although you can, although
Mm-hmm.
while you're there, you can be a blessing and you can help them and you can meet needs. And the primary, like for example, this August we're going up to Philadelphia to see Brother Burton Gates. I've known him for a long time, and he preached our mission conference last year. Our people really liked him. We actually have a family in the church now. They got saved when he was out soul winning here. Now they've been in the church, been very faithful ever since then. They're
Amen.
thinking about going up there with us. He started another church up there, and we're going to. And everybody keeps asking me, "What are we going to do? What do?" And I think some people are worried, that we're going to go up there and we're going to go soul winning for 7 days straight, 12 hours a day. They're like, if I go, what are we doing? What's it going to be like? And they think that we're running the VBSs and we're doing all this kind of stuff. But I'm sure we'll help with some things, and I'm sure we'll go soul winning, and I'm sure there'll be certain avenues we see. The primary reason I'm going and I'm bringing people with me is because when you go on mission trips, you come back with a burden every single time. So I warned everybody who's interested in going is if you currently don't give to missions, you will.
Yeah.
Because God's going to work on your heart. You will give to missions because that's how mission trips work. Because there's such a disconnect between supporting somebody and actually seeing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And being there and be a part of it. And you're going to come home going, I got to get involved. I mean that these people, my heart reach out to these people, and you see how good your life situation is versus theirs, and the third world countries, and how you have churches on every corner, and they have one in the whole country.
Yeah.
You see those differences, and you think, I got to get involved. And I always tell them, you're either going to start giving or you're going to start giving more. And so the primary reasons that I recommend mission trips, because we're going to Philadelphia this year because it's the cheapest option, because you don't need a passport, you don't need a overseas flight. But next year we're going out of the country. But this is trying to get people's appetite wet, is what I tell them. I said, I want you to go and experience it. Even if you literally go and don't help with anything, you just go and watch. You just go to observe. You will come back changed. Because it's a whole nother world and what they're doing versus what we're doing. So mission trips to me is something that if your church isn't involved in, at least have goals to have that as an option. And if you plan with them far enough out, they're doable. You can't just say we're doing them this month. If you plan on them, you work on them, you put money back, you save them. And again, it's one of those things where, I mean, for example, the Philadelphia trip is going to be fairly cheap according to how most mission trips are. Our lodging is going to be taken care of. Travel's taken care of as far as once you get there. They're helping with that. The plane tickets are a little less than $500 each. So really, $600-700 if you wanted to just be very frugal, you could probably get away with $600-700 going on the trip, because most of your things are paid for. You mainly need food, money, and airfare, that kind of stuff. But if that even on the church's end, because the church was going to cover my airfare because I'm going not as vacation, I'm going there to do things, but is missions related. But even that little bit of money you lose out of your missions account, when people come back and people start giving more, you're coming out green. And it's one of those things that when you go on mission trips and you start getting a burden for that kind of stuff, you're going to come back and you're going to want to do something about it. And it's not manipulative. It's just what it is. You see a need, you want to help. And the reason a lot of times we don't help missions is because we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But we don't know what's actually going. It's one thing to see a picture on a screen of a little poor kid in another country. It's another to go there and see him literally eating bones because there's no food.
Yep.
It's another to watch that, take that in, and to realize this is a thing.
Yeah.
This is a thing that this whole village, because man, we live in like the Bible Belt pretty much. Texas probably isn't technically the Bible Belt, but we pretty much are. We're like the buckle, I guess you could say, of the Bible Belt. And I mean, every door you knock on, everyone you talk to, I don't even know if I've ever met someone here that's never heard of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of the culture. Well, you may not believe in them, you may not like them, you may love them, but everyone's heard of them.
Yeah.
Everyone understands the concept of who Jesus is.
Yeah.
There's countries out there, and I've been to them, that you can talk about Jesus and they say, "Who's that?"
Yep.
When you get a question like that for the first time,
Yeah.
you're thinking, "What do you mean? Who's Jesus?
Mm.
What's a Bible? Church?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?" And you realize there's people that have no idea.
Yeah.
And so to me, mission trips, if you've never been outside the country on a mission trip, to me, I gave a little to missions before I went. This last Faith Promise, me and my wife, we tripled how much we were giving, and very uncomfortable when we decided to do that. And we didn't know, it was sketchy, doing it, but we just felt it was a God number that God put on our hearts, and God's never left us high and dry.
Amen.
But it started, my true burden started with going to other countries.
Yep.
And that is seeing it for the first time. I mean, we went to the Philippines, and I mean, there was like 85 national Filipino pastors at this pastors conference that we put on 10 years ago. And they're from Cebu and Negros and Iloilo City, and they're from all these places in middle of storms, and they're crossing little stretches of the ocean trying to get to our island just to make it in little canoes and rafts and stuff, trying to get to the pastors conference. And the last night of that pastors conference, we had all the national pastors get on the platform so we can get a picture. And there was, I think, 85 of them that night. And just, I mean, all very, probably the average age similar to here, 50 to 60, 65, somewhere around there, mostly older. And at the end, we had brought, I was over there with Chris Dallas and several other people. We had brought 100 brand new Bibles, King James Bibles. And of course, in the Philippines, pretty much everybody speaks English for the most part, unless they're uneducated and they didn't go through school for some reason. But 90% of the people speak English. So we were giving out these King James Bibles, and we're talking about these are pastors of churches, and they've been pastoring for decades, and they are all in tears because most of them are holding a Bible that's been passed down for 4 or 5 generations, and they're the only ones in their church with a Bible.
Yeah.
And they're crying because their Bible is missing chapters. It's missing pages. And I was talking to them afterwards. They're crying because they can now preach the whole Bible.
Yeah.
They can now declare God's word in completion to their people. Now they're not missing books and missing chapters. And they're crying because now the next pastor of the church will have a better Bible.
Amen.
And he can pass that one day. They're not crying because they have 10 Bibles. Now we have 11. They're crying because that Bible means something.
Yeah,
so when you go to another country and you can see that, you come back changed. Yeah. You come back and you don't think, well, I'm not going to give to missions because I can only give $10. Then give it. $10 in other countries gets you quite. I mean, in the Philippines, my average meal was 27 cents.
Yeah.
$10 gets you farther in some places than it does here.
For sure.
So if that's all you can give, trust God and give it. And it's so mission trips to me, if you want to have that connection with your people in the mission field, just being honest, videos are good, all that stuff's good until you're there, until you see it for yourself, until you're sleeping in their conditions, until you're talking with them about their spiritual needs, and until you're there, the burden's just not going to be the same. Yeah. So to me, that's, if you want to make that connection, that's honestly, that's the best way to do it. It's not the top of my list only because you can't do it every week. You can't do it every month. Yep. You got to save up some money. You got to plan. It takes organization. But I think if there's one thing on my whole list that is the most effective, the most influential, and honestly, church, if you're listening and your pastor doesn't have too much of a heart for missions, send him on a mission trip.
Yeah,
say, good. Hey, we support 2 missionaries right now. How about you go spend 10 days with bro so-and-so? We'll pay for it. He'll come back with a heart for missions.
Yeah, that's right.
He'll come back excited. He'll come back on fire.
Amen.
So sometimes you got to do that kind of stuff. Just keep him motivated, keep him going. If your pastor likes going to conferences, let him keep going. He needs that encouragement.
Yeah, for sure.
I have one more, but do you have any before I get to it?
Um, no, I was just going to mention something that you and I talked about earlier, and that was something that we're just planning to do and implementing as a church to be a blessing to missionary wives, and that was just going to be to start
Yeah.
writing letters to them. Um,
Yeah, taking care of missionary families is a big one. I
yeah.
agree with that. We've kind of been looking into options on what we can do. We haven't settled on any of them yet.
Hmm.
But don't forget the wives. Don't forget the kids.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
these kids are growing up in different countries. These kids are growing up.
Yep.
The first several years, they don't have friends because no one speaks their language, and they're
Yep.
having to learn a new language just to
Yep.
have a friend. So don't forget the kids. They have. I've heard some pretty rough stories about kids on the mission field, and you got to realize a lot of these kids, if they're not quite right with God when they go, because they're just kids, they don't know yet. A
Hmm.
lot of them, they don't want to be there, and
Yep.
they're forced to be there, and they're just there because their family's there, and that's a lot of drama can kick up with that. And um, a very close friend of mine, missionary to Guam, his son committed suicide
Hmm.
there on the field and never wanted to be there. But it's pray for the kids, pray for the families, the wives, be involved in the whole family, because if any part of that family fails, the ministry could be over.
Yep.
So don't just pray for the preacher, don't just pray for the father, if you will. Pray for all of them. They
Yep.
need it. Last
Amen.
one I have. This one kind of goes along with a little bit of the other ones as well. It's all technology driven because that's just the day and age we live in. But we have some kind of video update, whether it be live or not live. Social media pages. Again, I recommend Facebook. I think I think most people understand Facebook compared to the other ones are a little more niche, at least for updating on this kind of stuff. Last one is have some form, and again, may not be possible where you're at, but for most countries that I'm aware of, it is possible. Have some form of online giving option,
Hmm.
to the point where if we're going to be up to date now, if we're going to be not 2 months behind on information, and we're going to
Hmm.
be able to know what you're experiencing right now, and
Hmm.
so and so is sick in your church, or so and so passed away, something happened and there is a need right now,
Hmm.
allow us to have an opportunity to help right now.
Yeah. Amen.
Allow God to prick our heart right now and say, I'm going to do that.
Yep.
I'm going
Good.
to take care of that. To the point where maybe it's just on your Facebook page and you don't throw it
Hmm.
around everywhere, or maybe you just mention it in your video at the end. Or, I mean, because I think mission should always be done through churches. I think that's the biblical
Yep.
way to do it.
Amen.
But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with individuals going out of the way to be a blessing to a missionary.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
I think you've had the same thing with the
Yep.
bike, the motorbike. We've had the same thing in our church with different things. Somebody will say, "Hey, I really want to support this or give to this. What do I do?"
Yep.
Generally, I'd say, if you mark it, put it in the offering, mark what it is, we'll take care of it on our end. But if we were giving an update and say, "Hey, we really have this need,
Yep.
whatever it is," they come up to me and say, "Hey, I really want to help with that." I said, "That's where you send the money. Just get it.
Yep.
You can either go through us, or if you send it there, they get it today."
Yep.
If we
Yep.
do it, we got to write a check, and then we got to mail the check to the sending church, and they got to process it, and they got to put it in
Yep.
the bank, and they got to send it to their account. Or you can just send it now. So to me,
Hmm.
if we're going to be up to date, have an option for that. It may not be used very much; it may be used a whole lot, but just have the option to where,
Yeah.
hey,
That's
I want to
good.
be a blessing to you today. And that you have this need, you don't want to wait a week for the funds. Let me help you.
Hmm.
And same thing like you said. One thing I want to do this year is not necessarily the back pay, because we don't have that at our church right now, but for Christmas I want to send a little something extra.
Yeah.
We've never
Amen.
done that before, but I want to send. I want to do a little bit of research, make sure we know how many kids they have. I want to send their kids something. I want to send
Yep.
their wife something.
Yep. Amen.
I want to kind of break it up and give them all something different.
Yep.
But just having an online forum for anything quick that needs to be done, I do like that option
Yeah. That's
for
good.
sure. Yeah,
That's
those to
good.
me, I'm sure there's other things too, but just get creative. Um,
Hmm.
don't I mean, just every area of the church, don't get stuck in the 70s, and that's just with everything, with your design options. With I mean, we say it all the time. People are so scared to be contemporary; they're not even up to date, and it's true in so many areas that. What's wrong with letters? My grandpa used those. That's what's wrong with letters,
Right.
because his grandkids don't. The
Right.
ones that are getting involved in church and getting saved and joining in the young families, they're left out of the loop because they're not reading letters and they're not getting the letters. But we live in a day and age where they want to watch the video. They want to see something live. They want the information now. No one wants 2-month-old information anymore. It used to be that's just you just deal with it. That's what you got. We're not there anymore. So to me, I think we just need to get updated and kind of keep up with the times. But as a church, do all you can to truly get to know your missionaries. I mean, if you're sending them money every single month, say, hey, it's just $100. If you support them for 40 years,
Yeah.
it's a lot of
Yep.
money.
Yep. For sure.
It's a 40, 12, it's $48,000. That's a lot of money. So get to know these guys. Pray for them. Consider their families. Pray about even giving them raises from time to time, just because inflation and it's how it works. But I think it's very important we bridge the gap between the church and the missionaries. Let the church put a face to the name. Let the church understand their needs. Let the church be a blessing if they want to be a blessing. Let the church go on mission trips. Whenever you come in and present your work, say, hey, we have a Facebook page. Follow us there. Stay up to date. The more the church sees you and puts a name to a face, they're more likely going to want to help when help is needed, because you're going to feel like part of their family, and they want to be a part of that. Anything last things you want to throw out there, Brother Jason?
No, I think it's definitely coming, and I agree that we definitely need to move forward in that regard. And Paul said, "Press toward the mark," and I think with that being said, and not taking it out of context, I think it's something that we can definitely do as we continue for the cause of Christ and in missions, and just do all that we can to, again, like you said, bridge the gap between our church members and the missionaries. And I think a lot of times, and I think a lot of that will, in and of itself, video calls, video updates, what have you. I think it'll mean more. I think it'll have more of an impact altogether. So
I think with just these ideas, and there's other ideas out there as well. Just with these ideas, it's not to benefit one side and not the other. Both are helped. When the church is more informed about what you're doing and they feel connected to you, they help more. They're less likely to drop you. They're more likely to help you when a need comes up. So it helps the missionary and it helps the church, because it helps give the church more of a burden for missions, and then it helps the missionaries get supported and stay supported and be blessings other places. And so it's one of those things that it's fault on both sides. Churches aren't doing what all they could be doing, and missionaries aren't doing what all they could be doing. It's fault on both sides. But if we solve these issues, it's benefit on both sides.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we start considering options like this, just because there's needs and they're not being met because we're working on old information.
Yeah. No, you're right. So
yeah, we're gonna let you go. I know Brother Jason is starving. He has barbecue chicken pizza sitting in his office. He's hungry. So we're going to let you go. Thank you again for listening. Again, like and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Facebook if you would like to. Just Church Help on Facebook. Let us be a blessing where we can. Pray for us as we're praying for you.
Yeah.
And just hope you have a good day.
All right. God bless.